when my financial advisor called and said, "Mrs. Harrison, someone's been transferring money from your accounts. I think it's your son," I felt my hands go cold. Then I said, "Show me everything." That's when I knew. After 62 years of trusting the wrong people, I finally learned to trust myself. It started on a Tuesday morning. I was in my garden, deadheading roses, when my phone rang. Richard Chen, my advisor for 15 years. We exchanged pleasantries. Then his voice dropped. "Eleanor, I need you to come to my office. Today, if possible." I set down my shears. "Is something wrong? I'd rather discuss this in person." 2 hours later, I sat across from Richard in his mahogany-paneled office. He slid a folder across the desk. Inside were bank statements, highlighted transactions, 50,000 here, 30,000 there, all going to accounts I didn't recognize. "These withdrawals," Richard said carefully, "they're authorized with your signature. But when I called to confirm the last one, you said you knew nothing about it." I studied the signatures. They looked like mine, almost. "How much total?" 240,000 over the past 8 months. My late husband Thomas built his medical practice from nothing. We lived modestly, saved carefully. When he died 3 years ago, he left me comfortable. Not wealthy, but secure. 240,000 was a third of my liquid assets. "Who has access to these accounts?" I asked. Richard hesitated. "Your son Michael is listed as co-owner. For estate planning purposes. You added him 2 years ago." "Michael. My only child, 40 years old, divorced, living in my guest house for the past year after his marriage fell apart." I thought about the forms he'd brought me to sign. "Mom, it's just smart planning. If something happens to you, this makes everything easier." I'd signed them at my kitchen table, trusting him completely. "There's more," Richard said. He showed me paperwork, applications to refinance my house, documents starting the process to transfer the deed, all with my forged signature. "I flagged these before they went through," Richard said. "But Eleanor, you need to understand what's happening here." I understood perfectly. My son was stealing from me and planning to take my house, the house where Thomas and I raised him, where I'd lived for 37 years. "What do I do?" I asked. Richard leaned forward. "First, we secure your assets. Today. Right now." We spent 3 hours moving money to new accounts. Michael's name appeared nowhere on them. Richard walked me to the bank. We closed the old accounts, opened new ones, changed every password, every PIN. I felt like a stranger in my own financial life. "Don't tell him yet," Richard advised. "We need documentation, evidence. If this goes to court, we need everything." I drove home in a daze. Michael's car sat in my driveway. I'd given him a key to the main house, of course. He was my son. He came and went freely. I found him in my kitchen making coffee. He smiled when I walked in. "Hey, Mom, how was your day?" I looked at him. Really looked. When had his eyes become so calculating? Or had they always been that way, and I simply hadn't wanted to see? "Fine," I said. "Just ran some errands." He poured himself coffee. Didn't offer me any. In my own kitchen. "Actually, Mom, I wanted to talk to you about something. Sarah and I have been discussing your situation." Sarah, his girlfriend of 6 months. She'd moved into the guest house with him 3 months ago, a woman I barely knew, living on my property. "My situation?" I asked carefully. "This house is too much for you. All these stairs. The garden. You're not getting any younger. Sarah and I think it might be time to consider assisted living. Somewhere you'd have help. Companionship." My blood went cold. This was it. The end game. Get me into a facility, take the house, drain whatever was left. "I'm 62, I said evenly. "I climb these stairs 20 times a day. I work in my garden every morning. I'm perfectly capable." Michael's expression hardened. Just slightly. "Mom, be reasonable. What happens when you fall? When you can't take care of yourself? Then we'll discuss it. When that happens. He set down his coffee cup. Hard, we're trying to help you, but you're too stubborn to see it. He left, slammed the door. I stood in my kitchen, shaking. I called my friend Patricia. We'd known each other 40 years. She came over within an hour. Over tea, I told her everything. The money, the forged signatures, Michael's suggestion about assisted living. Patricia's face grew grim. Eleanor, this happened to my cousin. Her daughter did the same thing. By the time she realized what was happening, she'd lost her house. She's living with her sister now. What did she do? Legally? Nothing. She was too embarrassed, too ashamed. She didn't want people to know her own daughter would do that to her. I thought about that. Shame. Yes, I felt it. How do you tell people your son is stealing from you, that he sees you as an obstacle, an asset to liquidate? But underneath the shame, something else burned. Anger. Pure, cold anger. I'm not going to be quiet about this, I said. Patricia squeezed my hand. Good. What do you need? A lawyer, a good one. She pulled out her phone. I know just the person. Jennifer Walsh was 50, sharp-eyed, and didn't waste time on sympathy. When I sat in her office the next morning and laid out the situation, she took notes rapidly. How much can you prove? She asked. All the financial transactions. My advisor flagged everything. The forged signatures? We have the documents. The bank can verify my real signature versus the forgeries. Jennifer nodded. Here's what we're dealing with. Financial elder abuse. Attempted fraud. Depending on how we proceed, this could be criminal or civil or both. What do you recommend? Document everything, every conversation, every interaction. Keep a journal, date, time, what was said. If he pressures you about the house or assisted living, write it down. Record him if possible. Record my own son? Jennifer's gaze was steady. Eleanor, your own son is stealing from you. Yes, record him. I left her office with a plan and a small digital recorder she'd given me. For the next 2 weeks, I played the role of oblivious mother. I let Michael think nothing had changed. I smiled when he suggested looking at retirement communities. I nodded when Sarah talked about how much easier my life would be in a smaller space. And I recorded everything. Michael got careless. He thought he'd won. One evening, he brought papers for me to sign. Just some insurance stuff, Mom. Beneficiary updates. I looked at them. They weren't insurance forms. They were power of attorney documents, medical and financial. I'll need to read these carefully, I said. Michael's jaw tightened. Mom, it's standard paperwork. Just sign them. I said I'll read them carefully. He grabbed them back. Fine, whenever you're ready. But we need to get this handled. You're not going to live forever. The recorder in my cardigan pocket captured every word. Sarah was worse. She stopped pretending to be nice. One afternoon, I overheard her on the phone in the guest house. My bedroom window overlooked theirs. They'd left it open. I know, Mom. Just a few more months. Once we get her into a place, the house is ours. Michael checked. With the power of attorney, he can sell it. We're looking at properties in Arizona. Something with a pool. She laughed. She has no idea. She still thinks Michael loves her. It's actually kind of sad. I recorded that too. But the worst came 2 weeks later. I'd driven to the grocery store. When I got home, I found Michael in my bedroom, going through my jewelry box. What are you doing? I asked from the doorway. He startled, badly, then recovered, looking for something of Dad's, a cufflink. I wanted to have it for an interview. Lie. Thomas's cufflinks were in his study, in his dresser. Michael knew that. They're in your father's study, I said quietly. Right. I'll check there. He brushed past me. I looked at my jewelry box. My grandmother's pearls were missing, the ones Thomas gave me on our 25th anniversary. They appeared on eBay 2 days later. I found them by accident, searching for similar pearls. The listing showed my grandmother's distinctive clasp. The seller's profile said Mike H., 2024. Michael was selling my jewelry, piece by piece, while living in my guest house. That was the moment something inside me crystallized. Not just anger anymore, resolve. I would not be a victim. I would not quietly disappear into some facility while my son took everything my husband and I built. I called Jennifer Walsh. "I'm ready to move forward." "Criminal or civil?" she asked. "Both." 2 days later, a process server arrived at my house. I'd arranged to be out. The man found Michael in the guest house and served him papers, a restraining order, eviction notice, and a lawsuit for financial elder abuse, fraud, and theft. I'd also filed a police report. Detective Morrison called me that afternoon. "Mrs. Harrison, I've reviewed the evidence your lawyer provided. This is a strong case. We'll be opening an investigation." When I returned home that evening, Michael's car was gone. So was Sarah's. The guest house door hung open. They'd left in a hurry, clothes still in closets, food in the refrigerator. My lawyer called. "He's contesting the restraining order, claims he was managing your finances with your permission. He has forged documents with my signature, which will prove." "Eleanor, prepare yourself. This is going to get ugly. He's your son. He'll say anything to defend himself." She was right. Michael hired a lawyer, a slick one who gave statements to reporters. Suddenly, my private nightmare was news. "Local man falsely accused by elderly mother," read one headline. "Son claims mother is mentally unstable," read another. Michael's lawyer painted me as confused. "Possibly suffering from dementia," said Michael was only trying to help, that I'd given him access to my accounts willingly and now couldn't remember. They requested a mental competency evaluation. I underwent 4 hours of testing with a forensic psychologist, memory tests, cognitive assessments, interviews. Dr. Martinez's report was clear. Eleanor Harrison demonstrates full cognitive capacity. Her memory is excellent. No signs of dementia or impairment. She understood exactly what she signed and when. She is fully capable of managing her financial affairs. That report destroyed Michael's defense. The trial took 6 months to reach court. Civil first. Jennifer Walsh was surgical in her presentation, bank records showing the transfers, forensic analysis of the forged signatures, recordings of Michael pressuring me, Sarah's phone call about taking the house, the eBay listing of my grandmother's pearls. Michael couldn't explain that. He claimed I'd given them to him, but I had photos of me wearing them 2 weeks before they appeared online. The jewelry was the killing blow. That was clear theft, undeniable. The judge ruled in my favor. Michael was ordered to repay every dollar, $240,000 plus interest, plus legal fees, plus punitive damages. He didn't have it, of course. He'd spent it. On what? I don't know. Cars, trips, Sarah's tastes. It was gone. The criminal trial followed. The prosecutor was relentless. Financial elder abuse is a felony in our state. The evidence was overwhelming. I had to testify. I had to sit in that courtroom and tell strangers how my son stole from me, how he planned to institutionalize me, how he sold my grandmother's pearls. I had to look at Michael across that courtroom and see him for what he was. Not my little boy, not the son I raised, but a man who saw his mother as nothing more than an inconvenient obstacle to money. The jury deliberated 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced him to 3 years in prison, suspended after 1 year with 5 years probation, restitution in full, no contact with me for the duration of probation. When the verdict was read, Michael finally looked at me, really looked, and for just a moment I saw something that might have been regret, or might have been anger that he got caught. I couldn't tell anymore. Sarah left him before the trial even ended, moved back to wherever she came from. I never saw her again. The money? I never got most of it back. Michael had nothing. You can't squeeze blood from a stone, but I didn't need it. Not really. What I needed was justice. Acknowledgement that what he did was wrong, that I wasn't crazy or confused or overreacting. I got that. My house is quieter now. The guest house stays empty. I've thought about renting it, but I'm not ready. Maybe someday. Patricia visits twice a week. We garden together, drink tea. She never says I told you so about Michael. She doesn't have to. Richard Chen helped me restructure everything. My will now leaves the bulk of my estate to charity. The Medical Research Foundation Thomas always supported. Michael gets nothing. He forfeited that right. People ask if I miss him, if I regret what I did. The answer is complicated. I miss the son I thought I had, the one I raised. But that son might never have really existed. Maybe I just saw what I wanted to see. Do I regret protecting myself? No, not for 1 second. Here's what I learned at 62 years old. Trust yourself. When something feels wrong, it probably is. When someone makes you doubt your own reality, document everything. When your own child treats you like an obstacle, you have every right to defend yourself. People want to believe that family always has your back, that blood is thicker than water. But sometimes blood is just blood, and water is what keeps you alive. I sleep well now. I wake up in my own house, in my own bed. I make my coffee in my kitchen. I work in my garden, and nobody is plotting to take any of it from me. Last week, I received a letter from Michael, forwarded through my lawyer. He's not allowed to contact me directly. The letter said he was sorry, that he'd hit rock bottom, that he understood now what he'd done, that he hoped someday I might forgive him. I read it twice, then I put it in a drawer. Maybe someday I'll answer it. Maybe someday I'll be ready to hear apologies. But today is not that day. Today I'm simply grateful I found the strength to fight back. Jennifer Walsh tells me my case is now used in elder law seminars, an example of what to do. How to protect yourself, how to document abuse, how to be willing to prosecute, even when it's family. I'm glad something good came from it. If my story helps one other person, one other mother or father being exploited by their own children, then maybe all of this meant something. Patricia and I were having tea last week when she asked, "Do you think Michael really understands what he did, or does he just regret getting caught?" I thought about that. I don't know. Maybe both, maybe neither. Are you okay with not knowing? I looked out at my garden, the roses I'd planted with Thomas 30 years ago, still blooming, still beautiful, still mine. Yes, I said, I'm okay with not knowing. Because here's the truth. It doesn't matter anymore what Michael thinks or feels or regrets. What matters is that I stood up for myself. I refused to be a victim. I refused to quietly disappear. At 62, I learned I'm stronger than I ever knew, braver than I thought possible, and more worthy of protection, even from my own child, than I'd been taught to believe. They say you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but I learned something crucial. I learned that sometimes the most important person to fight for is yourself, even when it breaks your heart to do it. Especially when it breaks your heart to do it. My phone rings. It's Richard, checking in on some investments. We chat briefly. Before we hang up, he says, "Eleanor, I hope you know how proud I am of what you did. A lot of people in your situation would have let it go. Accepted it. You didn't. I couldn't," I tell him. "Not, and live with myself. That's what makes you remarkable." After we hang up, I return to my garden. There's weeding to do. Always is. You let things go too long, and the weeds take over everything, choke out all the good growth. You have to stay vigilant, pull them out by the roots, even when it's hard work, even when those roots go deeper than you'd like. I kneel in the dirt, my hands in the soil, Thomas, and I turn together so many times. The earth is constant, honest. You plant seeds, you tend them, and they grow or they don't. But they never lie to you. They never pretend to be something they're not. I wish I could say this story has a happy ending. that Michael and I reconciled, that he truly changed, that we're a family again. But that would be a lie, and I'm done with lies. This story's ending is simpler, more honest. I'm here, in my house, safe, protected, with people around me who genuinely care. That's enough. After everything, that's more than enough. It has to be.